everyone, Trades here. Now in my last video, for a small part of it, I talked about why hate the sin, love the sinner is such a terrible thing to say. The response has been overwhelmingly positive. It took me years to be able to put my feelings into words, and you all accepted it very warmly. This has led me to think about conversations with mostly Christians, and what are some other cliche or tired statements that likely lead to eye rolls from most atheists. This is not saying we can ignore the times when some atheists say pretty bad things to theists. Engaging in meaningful dialogue between Christians and atheists can be challenging, especially when certain phrases are used that, while well-intentioned, often do more harm than good. So today, I'm going to give you all 10 phrases Christians should avoid when speaking to atheists. But in true Dark of All Trades fashion, I can't just tell you the phrase and say, don't say this anymore, and then just end it. I need to talk about them. So for each of them, I'll break down the intended message, how it's perceived by atheists, and how Christians can better communicate their message. Number 1. I'll pray for you. When Christians say, I'll pray for you, they typically intend it as a kind gesture, expressing care and concern. They believe prayer can offer comfort, guidance, or even divine intervention, and by saying this, they're trying to show compassion and support. To an atheist, however, this phrase can come across as dismissive or even condescending. It implies that the atheist is spiritually deficient or in need of divine help, which they don't believe in. Rather than addressing the atheist's actual concerns or engaging with them on a deeper level, this phrase can feel like a polite brush-off, signaling that the conversation is over and that their views aren't being taken seriously. Instead of saying, I'll pray for you, Christians might consider saying something like, I hope things work out for you, or I'm here if you need anything. This approach expresses genuine care and support without bringing religious beliefs into the conversation, making it more likely to be well received and to keep that dialogue open. Number 2. Deep down, you know God exists. The statement is often rooted in the belief that everyone has an innate sense of God's existence, but some people suppress it for various reasons. By saying this, Christians might be trying to appeal to what they see as a universal truth, hoping to spark a moment of self-reflection that could lead to belief. However, atheists often perceive this statement as a direct challenge to their intellectual honesty and personal integrity. It suggests that they are either lying or in denial about their beliefs, dismissing the genuine thought process that led them to atheism. This not only invalidates their experiences, but also shuts down any opportunity for meaningful dialogue, as it presumes to know their mind better than they do. A more effective approach might be to say, I'm curious about what led you to your beliefs, or I'd like to understand more about your perspective. This invites genuine conversation where both sides can share their views openly, fostering a respectful exchange rather than a confrontational one. Number 3. You just want to sin. Some Christians believe that atheism is a moral choice rather than an intellectual one, assuming that atheists reject God to avoid moral accountability. This phrase is often used to suggest that atheism is a way of justifying immoral behavior without fear of divine judgment. This statement reduces a complex philosophical stance to a simplistic moral failing and ignores the possibility that someone might arrive at atheism through reason and not rebellion. It's accusatory and alienating, making it difficult to engage in any meaningful discussion. Instead of addressing the atheist's actual beliefs and reasoning, it dismisses them as morally flawed, which is not only unfair but also counterproductive to any kind of constructive dialogue. Rather than making assumptions about motives, Christians could ask, what led you to your current beliefs? Or how do you approach questions of right and wrong? This shows a willingness to listen and understand, creating a more respectful and productive conversation. Number 4. Without God, there is no morality. Many Christians believe that morality is grounded in God, and without belief in God, moral values have no objective foundation. They might say this to emphasize the importance of faith and maintaining a moral society. Atheists often find this statement insulting, as it suggests that they are inherently immoral simply because they don't believe in a God. It overlooks the fact that morality can be grounded in a variety of philosophical foundations that don't rely on theism. This statement not only dismisses the ethical lives that many atheists lead, but also shuts down any chance of a productive discussion on ethics and morality, making it a conversation ender rather than a starter. A more constructive approach would be to ask, what are your thoughts on the basis of morality? Or how do you determine what is right or wrong? This invites a dialogue on ethics that respects the atheist's perspective and allows for a deeper exploration of shared values. Number 5. You'll believe in God when you're in a foxhole, or there's no atheists in foxholes. This phrase is based on the belief that in moments of extreme fear or desperation, people will instinctively turn to God for help. The idea is that atheism is a luxury of comfort, and that belief in God will emerge naturally in times of crisis. Atheists often see this statement as trivializing their beliefs and experiences, suggesting that their atheism is merely a phase that will disappear in a crisis. It assumes that they are insecure or that they haven't faced true hardship, which can be both inaccurate and deeply insensitive. This phrase can also be seen as alienating, as it implies that atheism is only sustainable in easy times, dismissing the atheist's resilience and depth of conviction. Instead of making assumptions about how someone will react in a crisis, Christians could say, "I'm curious how you handled tough times in your life," or "How do you find strength in difficult situations?" This opens the door for a discussion about coping mechanisms and resilience without assuming that a belief in God is the only valid response. Number 6. You can't prove God doesn't exist. This phrase is often used to suggest that atheism is just as much a belief system as theism, resting on faith rather than evidence. By pointing out that God's non-existence can't be definitively proven, Christians might hope to highlight the limitations of atheism and the possibility of faith. Atheists, however, see this as a type of misunderstanding of the burden of proof, which lies with the person making the claim. Atheism is often about skepticism of unproven claims, not making absolute assertions. When Christians use this argument, it can derail discussions into unproductive territory, focusing on abstract debates rather than the real issues at hand. This approach can feel frustrating and evasive, as it shifts the conversation away from the evidence and arguments being discussed. A more effective approach might be to engage directly with the specific reasons someone is an atheist. Christians could ask, "What convinced you that God doesn't exist?" Or, "What evidence would you find compelling?" This allows for a more focused and meaningful discussion that respects the atheist's position and encourages a thoughtful exchange of ideas. Number 7. If you don't believe in God, then you must believe in nothing. Some Christians might say this because they see belief in God as essential to finding meaning and purpose in life. They may assume that without belief in a higher power, life must be devoid of meaning, leaving a person adrift. Atheists often find this statement reductive and dismissive. It overlooks the rich and varied worldviews that atheists might hold, which can include belief in human potential, science, philosophy, and other sources of meaning. Atheism isn't about believing in nothing. To the atheists, it is more likely about finding meaning in different places. By oversimplifying atheism in this way, Christians risk alienating those they are trying to understand, making it harder to find common ground or have a productive discussion. Instead of assuming that atheism equates to a lack of belief, Christians could ask, "What gives your life meaning?" Or, "How do you find purpose without belief in a higher power?" This shows a genuine interest in understanding the atheist's worldview and can lead to a deeper, more respectful conversation. Number 8. I pity you. This phrase might be used out of genuine concern for the atheist's eternal soul, or because the Christian believes the atheist's life lacks spiritual fulfillment. From their perspective, pity is a form of compassion, expressing sorrow for what they perceive as a life lacking in divine connection or meaning. Atheists often perceive pity as deeply condescending, implying that they live lesser or empty lives. It dismisses their capacity for joy, love, purpose, and fulfillment outside of religious belief. Instead of opening up a dialogue, this phrase can create feelings of resentment and frustration. It suggests that the atheist's way of life is inferior, which is not only dismissive, but also unlikely to foster any meaningful conversation or understanding. Instead of expressing pity, Christians could approach the conversation with curiosity and respect. A better alternative might be to say, "I'm interested in hearing about what brings you happiness and fulfillment," or "I'd like to understand what gives your life meaning." This shifts the focus from judgment to genuine interest, which can lead to a more open and respectful exchange of ideas. Number 9. You need to read the Bible, or have you read the Bible? Christians may ask this question because they assume that atheism stems from ignorance of Scripture. They might believe that if an atheist were to read the Bible, they would see the truth of Christianity and be convinced of its teachings. This question is often posed with the intention of encouraging the atheist to explore the Bible's teachings more deeply. Many atheists find this question patronizing, as it assumes ignorance rather than engaging in their actual reasoning or experiences. The truth is, many atheists have read the Bible, some even more thoroughly than many believers, and their atheism may be partly informed by their understanding of it. By assuming that the atheist's lack of belief is due to a lack of knowledge, this question can come off as dismissive of their intellectual journey and conclusions. Rather than asking if they've read the Bible, Christians might ask, "What are your thoughts on the teachings of the Bible?" Or, "How has your experience with religious texts shaped your beliefs?" This approach opens up a conversation that respects the atheist's perspective and acknowledges that their views are likely based on thoughtful consideration and not ignorance. Finally, number 10, you'll regret this on your deathbed. This statement is often made out of concern for the atheist's eternal destiny, with the belief that facing death will bring a person back to belief in God. Christians might think that in the face of mortality, atheists will realize the error of their ways and seek salvation before it's too late. Atheists typically view this statement as emotionally manipulative and fear-based, relying on the assumption that everyone will revert to religious belief in their final moments. It can be seen as presumptuous, as it implies that atheists are in denial about their true beliefs and that they will eventually come around when faced with death. This not only disrespects the atheist's current beliefs, but also diminishes their sense of autonomy and self-awareness. Moreover, it shifts the conversation away from mutual understanding and into that realm of fear I talked about before, along with judgment, which is unlikely to foster positive dialogue. Instead of predicting how someone might feel on their deathbed, Christians could say, "I hope you find peace in whatever comes next," or "I'd love to hear more about how you view life and death." These statements express care without making assumptions or predictions, allowing for a conversation that respects the atheist's perspective while still conveying genuine concern. Now let me extend an olive branch. I'm willing to grant that these 10 phrases are often used with good intentions, spoken honestly, but the problem is that they tend to create barriers rather than bridges between Christians and atheists. Instead of fostering understanding, they often lead to frustration, alienation, and a breakdown in communication. By avoiding these statements and focusing on genuine, respectful dialogue, Christians can engage atheists in conversations that are more likely to lead to mutual respect and understanding. The key is to approach these discussions with curiosity, humility, and a sincere desire to understand the other person's perspective. In doing so, both sides can move beyond surface-level disagreements and toward deeper, more meaningful exchanges that respect the complexity and sincerity of each other's beliefs. That's it for this one. So what do you think? Do you think I'm explaining these phrases well? Does my explanation encapsulate your feelings on them no matter what side of them you're on? Or do you have a different understanding of one of them? I know I granted the Christian is being honest with what they're saying, and I'm giving them the best interpretation I can think of as to what they mean. But perhaps there are other explanations, more than just a way to say, "Screw you, you don't believe what I do, so you're wrong." Let me know your thoughts in the comments below. Appreciate my perspective? Hit the like button, or even if you don't, do that anyway. I'd appreciate that. Though if you want to prove to yourself that my channel exists, hit that subscribe button if you haven't already to get weekly reminders that, yes, my channel does exist. Speaking of excellent proof, I need to give an excellent thanks to my patrons, Calanimus Anima, Sora, Long-Haired Lefty, Musical Ocelot, Ooga Booga Luga, Anonymous Netizen, Angel, Tarek Alkasab, Jamabomb, Kai Henningsen, and Triple Towel, who help grant clear understanding to all these religious points. If you'd like to be in the foxhole against bad arguments with me, you can join them for as low as $1 a month at patreon.com/darkofalltrades. My goal for this is to work with theists and improve our dialogue, though realistically, I hope that I put into words what some of you may not have thought to express, or may not have been able to express for one reason or another. As I like to say, if my video helps just one person be just a bit better, then it's all worth it. And as always, keep learning.